Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Golden Astrologer Podcast. This is Deb McBride, and I am with you recording this in beautiful, lovely Escazú, Costa Rica, where it is Sunday, March 1st in the year 2026. And we are starting a new month, and this is now the year is 1/6 over, and it's going fast. So here we are on March 1st. And, well, so, we've been in this time of eclipses, and we have an eclipse coming on Tuesday, which I'm going to talk about. But, with Saturn, Neptune together and eclipses coming, and this has been an intense time. And as I mentioned for months, as I've been mentioning for months, I've been saying that I was expecting that this level of astrology, this intensity, this historical aspect of Saturn and Neptune was going to bring something like an event, like a historical event, and that's what we've seen. So, I'm extremely sensitive, and I have to be very careful about what I consume, from the internet and from the news and everything. And here's a really good example of that. So Friday night I went to bed and I expected to have a good night's sleep, and I woke up at 3:30 a.m. Now, I had not been looking at the news, and I had not been watching things and stuff. But I woke up at 3:30 a.m. and I could not get back to sleep. And so finally, after, getting up and eating something around 6 a.m., I finally got back to sleep about 6:30. And of course, my cat woke me up an hour and a half later. But, needless to say, I did not get enough sleep, and it was all disturbed and disrupted and whatever. So I went on with my day, which I needed to yesterday. And so this was now Saturday morning, and I was standing in the kitchen making myself some coffee, which I clearly needed. And I'm standing there saying to myself, you know what, if something hasn't happened, it's going to happen, because I can feel it. I can feel it. And I then received through the internet, through Instagram, in fact, I guess it was, I got the news about what happened, the attack on Iran. And I was like, there it is. There's the event. There's why I didn't sleep. This is why it's been so complicated and difficult to, I had some other things, like during the week, some other nights where I was having struggle sleeping. And so there it is. And then I was talking to people like Suchitra, a woman that visits Giselle, and she's very lovely, and she said, I woke up at 3 a.m. too. And then, other people are telling me they woke up, and they woke up at different times, 3 a.m., 5 a.m., 4 a.m. People were waking up. And so we're sensitive people. And so I knew it before I knew it. And it was so disruptive to my sleep and so intense. And, we are not even at the second eclipse yet. So, but it doesn't matter. The fallacy of the partile aspect, it doesn't have to be the exact day of the eclipse. This was clearly going to happen. And, this is why I don't get involved with the news. This is why I try to keep my podcast as clean as possible, because you can get that elsewhere. You can go to the newspaper, you can go to a website, and I have to focus on astrology, because that's my job. And so, so it's very disrupting, very disturbing. The whole thing is disturbing and upsetting. And obviously, we're in the midst of something. The world is in the midst of something, awful. I'll just say awful. It's awful. My friends here were saying to me today, you told us 1989. This was about 1989. I said, well, there was a Saturn Neptune in 1989. Yes. And they said yes. And so the Ayatollah that was killed, had been in office since 1989. And so that was the last Saturn Neptune. So he entered the office in 1989, the position in 1989, and now it's a Saturn Neptune again, and that was the end of that. So, yeah. So, obviously, I had to speak about that. Obviously, we were going to see something. The story is not finished, obviously, and we have to, use this Saturn Neptune to sort of be aware of what could potentially be happening in these next weeks. As this, they're at 1 degree now. The two of them, they're no longer at 0 degrees. They're at 1 degree, and they're moving through Aries, and Saturn will pull ahead. Saturn will get busy and move forward because Saturn is faster than Neptune. So that's what's going to start happening. As I'm doing this, Saturn is already ahead of Neptune by about 46 minutes in Aries. So Saturn's past Neptune, and that's where we are. And so we have an eclipse. We have an eclipse on Tuesday, and that is March 3rd. The eclipse is a full moon, a lunar eclipse. It is at 12 degrees Virgo. It is close to the south node. The south node is at 8 degrees Virgo, so that's fairly close to the south node. And that's the dragon's tail. That is not the dragon's head. That is not the dragon's head. The dragon's head is the north node at 8 degrees Pisces. And so, the other thing was that Mars was stepping on the eclipse point in these last couple days as well. And I said that last week. It was going to square Uranus and then step on the first eclipse. And remember that when eclipses happen, they are not finished until Mars or Saturn goes over them. And so Mars went over the first eclipse. It's at the point, it's 29 degrees Aquarius now, it was 28 degrees or so yesterday when Mars stepped over that. And, it's like stepping on a landmine. So that's what Mars did. And even though it was in Aquarius, not in its own sign of Aries, but Saturn and Neptune are ruled by Mars, and that stepped on that eclipse point. So here we are. Not a great shock. So the eclipse is the full moon. It is in the sign of Virgo, and the sun is in Pisces. And this also affects anybody who has Virgo planets. If you have Virgo planets, like I have Virgo planets, because generationally I have Virgo planets, the eclipse will land on them. And of course, if you have planets in Pisces, like around that 12-degree mark, planets in Sagittarius, planets in Gemini, 12-degree mark, yes, those things are hot points because they are either square the eclipse, Pisces is opposite the eclipse. So yeah, so this is all, part of eclipses when an aspect happens. And, you hear me talk about it even when it's a regular full moon. So it also affects 27 degrees cardinal. So if you have something at Aries at 27 degrees, you have something at Libra, 27 degrees, or Capricorn or Cancer at 27 degrees, yes, that eclipse will trigger those as well. So it is a very interesting time astrologically. And we really won't come out of this time without some sort of big change in the world. So, remember what I said about 1989, the Berlin Wall fell. And so this is, not exempt from that. It's a Saturn-Neptune. Anytime Saturn gets together with one of the outer planets, it's usually a very powerful change historically. So this is what we're doing now. We're in a powerful change historically. You will feel this, you will see this, you will see it every day in the world, and I highly recommend getting a session with some astrologer, if not me, some other astrologer, if you don't know where this Saturn-Neptune is landing in your astrological chart. It is in the beginning of Aries. It was at the end of Pisces, now the beginning of Aries. So where do you have Aries in your chart? Everybody's got Aries someplace in their chart, and that house will light up with this Saturn-Neptune, and that's where things are changing for you. So this eclipse is a very interesting eclipse because it is at the south node. It is always letting go of something. And it could be something that you were expecting or something that no longer serves you. And in many cases, it's something that no longer serves you, and it's asking to just like let it go. But Virgo is one of those healing signs. It's about, cleaning the house. It's about keeping things in good order. It's about sweeping out the old, clearing the closets and the cupboards, doing a space cleanse, doing a body cleanse, anything that's going to release the old stuff. No eclipse is like the other eclipse. You can't expect that this eclipse is going to be the same as the lunar eclipse that we had back in September. And each eclipse brings its own set of circumstances, and they are wild cards. We don't really know exactly what's going to happen. Now, just because something doesn't happen by Tuesday doesn't mean it's not going to happen at all. It could happen Wednesday or Thursday. And so these are things that we just want to stay alert to and aware of, okay? The eclipse period does not end on Tuesday. Tuesday, it's the eclipse is at 6:38 a.m. Eastern time. That doesn't mean at 6:39 it's over. I mean, the eclipse itself is physically not happening anymore. Like after, we get up in the morning and we have breakfast and all in this region of the world, or wherever you are. It might be the afternoon, it might be the nighttime if you're like across the globe. But it doesn't go away. The eclipse matters stay with us until we get into well into March, and that would be the next new moon, because we have a full moon eclipse, and then the aspect that kicks it out, the lunation, is the following new moon, which is Wednesday, the 18th of March. So that's 2 weeks away, and that new moon is at 28 Pisces, and that's it. That's the end of Pisces. We're not there yet. So we are really just kind of focusing on this. The events of that eclipse will finally fizzle out by the time we get to that point in March, right? So we're not even there yet. So let's have this eclipse. It really isn't something that is extremely predictable, okay? Like I said, eclipses are wild cards. So, with all of this energy, with all of this Mars squaring Uranus, stepping on the eclipse from last time, and now we have another eclipse, I suggest you take it easy. If you don't want to get things in a kerfuffle with someone else, or with you, in a situation with anybody, then I suggest you take it easy and do not allow yourself to really lose your head. You got to keep your head right now. We all do. Eclipses bring emotions to the table. I say this every single eclipse period, and by now you should know that. But, eclipses bring emotions to the table. It means what wasn't hot 3 weeks ago is now hot and in your face. And if you're red-faced and you want to start arguing, you're not going to win. It's just going to go nowhere. It's just calm down, okay? Take a breath, step back. Don't worry about it, okay? But don't harbor resentments and emotions and angers and things. Go blow off the steam at the gym, in the pool, on a walk in the park, whatever. Play some sports. Do something that's going to just unplug, okay? We want to keep this as smooth as possible. After all, the sun is in Pisces, the moon is in Virgo. They are not hot-headed signs, right? They are generally more peaceful. Pisces is sort of more peace-loving. Virgo is much more practical. We're not dealing with, fire signs and stuff. We're trying to stay very calm and connected and grounded during this, okay? That's one of the best things you could do. Now, there's other things going on in the sky. First of all, Mars, like I said, that stepped on the last eclipse, is leaving Aquarius, and tomorrow it will enter the sign of Pisces, and that is at 9:16 a.m. Eastern Time. And Mars in Pisces is not the best relationship, sign-planet relationship. It's not because Mars is at like any sort of detriment there. It's just a very active warrior-oriented sign, and it doesn't do well in a very mild, peaceful, sensitive place like Pisces, okay? People who have Mars in Pisces find it hard to assert themselves. They make really good healers. They're really good artists. They're very creative. They will assert themselves when they have to, but they're going to do it hopefully in the kindest way possible. But Mars in Pisces can be sneaky. It can be sneaky. It's not something that's, Mars is not direct. Mars is indirect because Pisces comes through the back door. So this time that we're going into with Mars going into Pisces tomorrow, the 2nd of March, it's going to feel like we have to come through the back door in order to get our needs met or our questions answered or things taken care of. And we don't want to, go head first into something. We've already got Saturn and Neptune in Mars' sign. And eventually, when Mars leaves Pisces, it's going to cross over Saturn and Neptune. Or by that time, it'll be Neptune, then Saturn, right? So let's use this wisely, because whatever we do now gets built upon by when Mars goes into Aries. It's the next chapter. So let's use our Mars energy wisely. Let's use it for going deep with ourselves and learning where we might not be so confident, and we need to do some work on that. Where we might not believe in ourselves enough, where we might not be courageous, or where we need to go into ourselves, and that's certainly what happens with an eclipse. Do a little emotional homework, okay, with Mars and Pisces. And Pisces helps us tap into our emotions. It can help us tap into our creativity. So it's good to do a little inner work whenever there's Pisces around. That's that 12th house energy. That's that energy of like going within and beyond, right? So there's other stuff. So that is the first planet that is changing signs this week. Mars going into Pisces from Aquarius, and then Venus is going into Aries. And it's at 5:46 a.m. on Friday the 6th. Now that's interesting because Venus right now is in Pisces, and although she won't meet with Mars there, she's leaving one of her favorite signs to go into one of her not so favorite signs. So she's going into Aries on Friday, and she's really fiery and a spitfire when she's in Aries. So she's a little tougher. She's a little more independent. She's sassy. She's sassy Venus when she's in Aries. Now, she's not in her favorite place because she loves Libra. And Libra is the opposite sign of Aries. So that's how you figure out where the planets belong or not. You look to the opposite. If it's in a sign that's opposite its home, okay? So Libra is ruled by Venus. Taurus is ruled by Venus. What's the opposite of Libra? Aries, where she's going. What's the opposite of Taurus? Scorpio, where she was a few months ago and where she will go retrograde later this year. So this is, complicated for Venus. She's not always at her best there. So use these days ahead to really do some, again, emotional homework while Venus is still in Pisces, because she loves being in Pisces. She is exalted there. And use this time to really be sensitive to other people's needs, to be empathic, to be sensitive to your own needs, to be self-loving in many ways, and just take care of yourself this week. And then when she goes into Aries, be clear, have clarity, be sassy and, a little sparkly, but don't be nasty, okay? Venus can go into Aries and bite hard if she wants to be a little nasty, So be very careful with that. Now, what do we know about Aries that I've said 10,000 times? Neptune and Saturn are there. Okay, so Venus is going to Aries on Friday. On Saturday, since Neptune is very close to the beginning of Aries, it's 1 degree or so, Venus will conjunct Neptune. And so that will be its 6:27 a.m. Eastern time on Saturday, the 7th of March. And that is a very strong signature, because Venus and Neptune tend to get along very well, but it's in a sign that neither one of them are really comfortable in. So it's again a little sneaky. So we got some sneaky relationship energy happening. And we've got sneaky Mars in Pisces, and we got sneaky Venus meeting with Neptune. So when you are dealing with your relationships, whether it's a personal one-to-one intimate relationship or maybe your friendships or groups and communities and things, be very aware of what's going on, because this could be really something that comes back to bite you. Like I said, Venus is in Aries. So you don't want that, because you've got to stay aware and alert with Neptune. Don't trust someone that you don't know. If you've got a bad feeling, just trust that. Trust your gut. If things seem a little wonky when you're having a conversation with someone, please be careful. Please listen to your gut. Listen to what you should trust and maybe what you shouldn't trust, because that's a lot of this Venus, Neptune, Mars, and Pisces. These are things that we have to be very aware of and use our intuition very clearly and sharply. Now, that is a really good use of Venus, Neptune, and Mars and Pisces. Be clear with your intuition. When it speaks, listen to it. Don't ignore it. Don't shove it under the carpet, because even though I said Mars can be sneaky in Pisces, it means that your intuition might speak very loudly and you're going, I don't know if I should trust that. If it's intuition and you know it is, go with it. Trust it. Sit with it. Talk with it. See what's going on. And that this is an intuitive time, because we are in Pisces. We still have the sun in Pisces, and eclipses bring up intuitive energy, and Venus touching Neptune is, we have to be cautious. If you meet somebody new in these next days with Mercury retrograde and eclipses and everything, you want to be really careful about what you tell them, what you reveal to them, what you hear coming from them. Be very, very careful about the way you relate to people in this week. So very interesting. Now, Venus touches Neptune on Saturday because she enters Aries on Friday. And then, of course, on Sunday, the 8th, Venus conjuncts Saturn. And that is at 9:40 a.m. Eastern Time, because Saturn is now, like I said, past Neptune. So now Venus is going in and triggering those planets. And she is the first of the inner planets since they've made their conjunction to go across, touching them. Remember, the moon touched them the day before the Saturn-Neptune actually was exact. So it was the 19th of February that the moon crossed them, and that was hard emotionally. And so when Venus comes in and touches both of these, I expect some stuff. Okay, it might be difficult emotionally. You may feel not very loving to yourself. You may be criticizing yourself, especially with that Saturn. You may trust someone on Saturday and then Sunday say, why did I trust them? That was dumb, because this is the nature of, Neptune and then Saturn. And Saturn can be very harshly critical. So we want to be very aware of our dealings with people, and don't hide from people, but be very smart when you deal with people and how they, react to you in your life. Be very aware, okay? Use your intuition, be very astute, and, try not to criticize yourself when we get to Sunday with Venus and Saturn conjunct. It's the I don't believe I deserve love aspect. After Saturday's I'm deeply in love and I'm feeling very romantic. It could be that you meet somebody or someone you are attached to. You think that you've got this lovely fantasy about what's going to happen, and then there's a slap about it on Sunday. So be wise, be intuitive, trust yourself, and just be aware. Now, you may have these things in your chart already. You may have a Venus Saturn, and that would be a recurrence. You may have a Venus Neptune, and that would be a recurrence. It will teach you some things about your own life and about the types of patterns and things that you attract. Okay, so this is very important. These are important aspects. Venus touching both Saturn and Neptune is going to give us some big information, especially on Saturday when Venus and Neptune are going to meet, like I said, 6:27 a.m. But at 6:02 a.m., shortly before that, the Sun and Mercury are going to meet. Really. So that means it's a week and a half since the Mercury retrograde began, and that's next Saturday, the 7th. And that's about the midpoint of the Mercury retrograde season. And it will go direct, a couple weeks later, or a little less than a couple weeks later. And it's going to give us some information here when the Sun gives Mercury a little boost, a little juice. And when you look at Sun and Mercury and then Venus, Neptune, we're being given some information next Saturday. So pay close attention. Trust it. Mercury retrograde reveals the truth. It comes out during the Mercury retrograde. You may get some sort of truth here that may be what you want to hear or not want to hear. So just be very aware. This is a bit of a sticky week, Astro Darlings, between the eclipse and then this Venus going over that Saturn Neptune, Sun Mercury. Lots of landmines that we could potentially step on. Earlier in the week, though, Venus, when she's still in Pisces, will sextile Uranus, and that's 11:41 a.m. on Wednesday. And so that's a little more kinder. It's kinder, so, it's opening the door to some interactions. And then the Sun will trine Jupiter on Thursday the 5th. That's lovely. We love when Sun and Jupiter trine one another. And this is great because it's in water signs. It's really empathic. It's genuine. It's sincere. It's opening opportunities and asking us to step forward into something that is benefiting us, right? Jupiter's in its exaltation. Sun is making a lovely aspect, 12:14 p.m., Thursday the 5th. And then what else is going to happen is that Mercury will trine Jupiter late Sunday the 8th. So that's actually 10:23 p.m. Pacific time, and it's going to be Monday morning Eastern time, wee hours, 1:23 a.m. And that Sunday the 8th is when daylight savings time starts. So my time will be a different relationship to U.S. time and world time, and to Europe time as well. So there's some good things that are happening in the middle of the week, where we have Venus sextile Uranus, where we have Sun trine Jupiter. And even when the eclipse happens on Tuesday, the moon will sextile Jupiter a few hours after the actual eclipse. The eclipse occurs at 6:38 a.m. Eastern time. The moon will sextile Jupiter at 10:45 a.m., so like 4 hours later. And that's a good thing. And moon will then move opposite Mercury, which will still be in Pisces because it's retrograde. And so there's some things supporting the eclipse. So I hope that the eclipse is kind to each and every one of us. That here we are, opening the door to something maybe that's helpful to us and healing to us, and that it's good for us. Okay. Then, the moon will go void on Wednesday the 4th. It will trine Uranus at 9:53 a.m. and then be void for a few hours until 1:56 p.m. Eastern time, when it goes into Libra. So we're looking at a week with some mixed bag energy. We've got, an eclipse, which is at the south node, asking us to release. And then we are experiencing some positive aspects with Venus and Uranus, which is nice and creative and maybe a nice surprise. Sun, Jupiter, very nice. And then when we get into Friday, Saturday, Sunday, things are a little more tense with, Venus entering Aries and then touching Saturn, Neptune, and then, hopefully, the Jupiter aspects and the Sun, Mercury are going to give us good information that's helping us manage all of this and not, get lost in the emotions of what can happen with Venus and Neptune, Venus and Saturn, and don't be self-critical. open your heart. These are really what they're telling us to do, is open our heart. So you may step back and withdraw during aspects with Venus and Neptune and Venus and Saturn. You may be, you know what, that's not really my friend. That's not friendship behavior. I'm going to withdraw. I'm not going to talk to them anymore. So, something like that. And don't do that. Look at the reasons things are happening. Look at your own sensitivities. Don't withdraw and walk away from people who probably really do love you. You've got to open your heart and have compassion for where people are. And that's really what Venus and Neptune asks for. And don't have compassion for the wrong people, like the people that are going to steal from you or something. But, open your heart and have empathy for where your friends might be, your loved ones might be, and maybe they don't mean to be critical, or maybe they're just in a bad mood. Maybe they don't know as much astrology as you do, and therefore they let themselves get brought into the tide of all of this intense energy. Just be patient with yourself and with everyone, okay? Enjoy this week. Work with the energy. Whenever you do emotional homework, whenever you do meditation, whenever you do some inner work, these aspects can really enlighten and support and help you, okay? Whenever I see things that are a little sticky like this, maybe you can't appreciate some of what's being shown to you, but if you step back and really work with it, you'll understand it and see where it can take you. Eclipses usually bring us to a different direction, and certainly they have so far this year. And no shock, because I've been talking about this, right? And so we want to just be very patient with ourselves and others, love ourselves, send your friends light and love. Maybe they don't want to talk right now. Be patient with everyone, okay? Thank you for listening. If you want to have a session with me, click book now in my profile on my website and on my Instagram, both The Golden Astrologer, and you can book online a session with me for astrology, for Reiki. If you need to go deep into months, we can do expansion mentoring. It's very helpful. It helps people get new jobs, see new things in their life, break out of old situations, and just be really present with a new life. So thank you for listening. Beautiful week to all of you, and take care, and many blessings, and enjoy your week. Gratitude to everyone.